This is Jerome talking to you from an amazing place. This is Rome, and specifically, this is the Abbey of Saint Anselm. They have a fancier Italian name for it, but it's a monastery that's been set up to honor this guy Anselm, who lived back around 1100. He was a Benedictine monk and had a tremendous influence on the development of the church at that time. And Anselm was a real philosopher as well as a theologian, and he was one of the ones credited with developing the idea of it's called the ontological argument for the existence of God. Basically the idea that if we can conceive of a divine, supreme, loving being, then that must have been placed there by a supreme, divine, loving being. And while some have found that argument compelling and others have not, it's an interesting idea, and I think it sort of correlates to the more modern expression that there's a God-shaped hole inside every human heart, which I believe to be true, and that it's a longing for God, it's a longing to return to the God who created us, the God who fathers us, the God who bestows every good thing. Just an intrinsic imprint on the human heart to be in relationship with God, which leads me to some ideas proposed by a guy named Hewitt, who wrote the book The Sacred Enneagram. And it's a personality typing mechanism that's about as ancient as these walls, even further back actually. But it gives insight into how we connect with that God-shaped hole. How is it that we really give space, because it's just so easy to barrel our way through lives and work and even really good, fabulous things, whether it's in ministry or in the marketplace, but not really listen to that voice calling us home beyond just what we believe, but into the deepest parts of who we are and who we're becoming. So this idea that there's a God-shaped hole inside of us corresponds to the different types of personality and how we often can engage that experience with God. So specifically, I'll just talk about 3 triads. You don't even have to be all that familiar with the Enneagram. I'll just give you a quick overview. There are 9 types on the Enneagram system, which is quite a bit different than the typical 4 or matrices of 4 types. And 3 of them comprise what we call the body center. That's the 8, 9s, and 1s. Then 3 are in the heart triad, 2s, 3s, and 4s. And then 5, 6s, and 7s make up the head triad. These are sort of our bents. Of course, we all have all 3 of these things. We're all a body, a mind, a heart. But there are defaults. There are ways we tend to process the world and engage God and one another. A certain bias based on how we've come into the world and found our ways to feel safe and secure in the world. So Hewitt proposes the idea that the body type really requires stillness. In other words, those that are instinctive and those that are prone to try to move in power and in control. Again, that's a human instinct that we all experience, but those that gravitate that direction really need to experience stillness in order to get in touch with the presence of the Holy Spirit. Those that are in the heart type, 2s, 3s, and 4s, because they gravitate so much toward engagement with others, these are the ones that really thrive on getting the need for affection and approval met. Another very human core need in our lives. So they come alive in solitude. And the head triad of 5, 6s, and 7s that often get stuck in their heads and are very oriented toward the need for safety and security These folks really need silence. They really need to dial down the volume and the noise in order to really get back in touch with the voice and presence of God. So there's just a few thoughts on how to not only say that we have this God-shaped hole as men and women, but that we have to respond to that by creating space. Which is why places like monasteries are so cool, where you can really find both stillness and solitude and silence to let your soul come back to life. So if you feel like your soul's been a little bit anesthetized or a little dull, a little numb, take a chance soon. Take an opportunity to cultivate some silence, some solitude, some stillness. God bless.